This is Keep On Cooking, a podcast for people who love cookbooks and want to know more about the authors. It's also a great place to get a weekly dose of culinary inspiration to keep things pumping in the kitchen. So grab a cookbook and keep on cooking. I'm Dustin Harder, and this is Keep On Cooking. Hello and welcome to Keep On Cooking, the only podcast dedicated to plant-based cookbooks. I'm your host, Dustin Harder, and he's Isaiah Washington, the semi-professional athlete, and my podcast partner in crime. It's David Rossetti. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
How's it going, Isaiah?
It's going great. For those who were not at my family's holiday game fest, which we just got back, so happy holidays, everybody. Isaiah Washington was a answer that I guessed.
We were playing a game called Splurt, where there's cards and like it says list, for example, this one was list a professional athlete whose name
say the name of a professional athlete
that begins an I, and everybody has to shout it out. And David very confidently just yelled, Isaiah Washington. And everybody was like, oh,
that sounds right, but wait a second.
Turns out Isaiah Washington played Dr. Burke on Grey's Anatomy, very popular show, Grey's Anatomy.
But Isaiah Washington also was a semi-professional basketball player.
I didn't.
So I won the card.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Look at that. I must have stopped.
Well,
listening.
I was challenged by the name. And
by all 8 of us sitting there.
Everyone was like, that doesn't sound right.
We were all on board for a good 15, 20 seconds. You almost were able to just snag the point and keep going. And then we all were like, wait a minute. But that's what we were doing. We were with David's family in Florida, just playing charades and trivia games galore. It was a good time.
Multiple meals where we had to navigate. You made your shepherd's pie.
Made shepherd's pie, made mac and cheese, and my mother-in-law,
vegan meal.
Your mother, Mama Pat, is just so wonderful when we're there, making sure we have vegan food. It truly, truly is magical how she really makes sure that we eat well, and
all the texts of what brands we like.
Well, and she's so great because she'll pull my cookbooks and she'll cook recipes out of the books, which is very fun and very sweet. But then she asked me a question about a recipe that was an epic vegan, which came out in 2018. She's like, so why XYZ? And I was like, I don't know, Pat. I gotta look at that. It came out 5 years ago. But we figured it out.
Amazing.
Well. And the shells were delicious.
They were.
Yes. Among other things, you made lots of cookies this year. What'd you make?
I sure did. I made vegan pizzelles, all from the 12 Treats of Christmas cookbook. So I made pizzelles, I made thumbprint cookies, I made sugar cookies.
Oh, yes. I feel like there was one more. No. You made
black bottom cupcakes.
Yeah, you made those out of Fran Costigan's book.
I did. Mama Fran.
Vegan chocolate. You can check out an episode of Vegan Chocolate with Fran Costigan on Keep On Cooking. That episode exists. A whole book dedicated to chocolate, vegan chocolate recipes.
So we made those, and they were all hits.
I think. Good stuff. And I made a peppermint chocolate bundt cake. Ooh,
and the peppermint meringues.
Oh, and I made peppermint meringues out of aquafaba, y'all. So I think those are going to be, because this 12 Treats of Christmas that I just had out on a link for everyone to buy. All the proceeds went to the Trevor Project. I think I'll make a volume 2, and it'll have these peppermint, sort of like candy cane meringues in them, and then these peppermint chocolate bundt cakes as well.
Yeah.
So yummy, so fun, so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't watch all of the holiday movies we usually watch.
We didn't. We did Family Stone.
Of course. Well, I'd say it's probably easier to say we missed Home Alone and Elf this year.
But
that's okay.
Very strange for us.
We'll get it. We'll hit it next year. If we haven't talked about it before, which I feel like we probably have, we saw Home Alone at here in Atlanta with the Atlanta Orchestra or Symphony.
Atlanta Symphony.
Where they played the score to Home Alone,
y'all,
live
if you have a chance
while you watch the movie.
It's so good.
It was so cool, y'all. It was so cool.
It was so cool.
And speaking of music, listen, we got a true gem on the show for you today, kittens.
We sure do.
She has been pushing vegetables in a jazzed up fashion for a while now, here to talk about the 10th anniversary edition, revised and updated edition of her book, The Jazzy Vegetarian. It's Laura Theodore. Laura is a nationally recognized television personality, PBS celebrity vegan chef, award-winning cookbook author, renowned jazz singer, and podcast radio host.
No, that's right. I think you've been on that podcast a couple times, eh?
I have. It's once upon a time it was called the Jazzy Vegetarian
Okay.
podcast. I believe I was on it a couple times then, and now it's called the Laura Theodore podcast. But you have to like say her voice is jazzy and deep and low and
The
smoky.
jazzy
It's
is more
the
of like
Jazzy
a
Vegetarian Laura Theodore podcast. But
more
that's
of an essence.
yes, more of an essence. It's where you can find it now. Additionally to the podcast, Laura is co-creator of the highly successful Jazzy Vegetarian vegan cooking series on national public television.
Yes, the Jazzy Vegetarian is now in season 10,
Woo-woo!
airing nationwide. That's amazing.
Mhm.
She is author of 6 cookbooks, including Vegan for Everyone, Jazzy Vegetarian, Lively Vegan Cuisine, Laura Theodore's Vegan Ease, Deliciously Vegan, and Easy Vegan Home Cooking.
Yes, Laura is the recipient of the Taste Award for Best Health and Fitness Television Program and has been featured on the cover of several many magazines, including American Vegan, and I love this title, American Vegan and Jazzin.
Now, wait, what is Jazzin?
Jazzin, it's a publication, babe. Get into it.
I'm obsessed. I
Jazzin.
feel like that feels very 80s.
I love it.
Did you get
Jazzin.
Jazzin magazine last week?
Oh, I got the Jazzin
I
magazine.
got the Jazzin magazine.
Yes.
She has been featured in the New York Times, Mother Earth Living, VegNews, Family Circle, Reader's Digest, and PBS Food, among other highly respected news, food, music, and lifestyle-related journals. As a globally recognized award-winning jazz singer and songwriter, Laura has recorded 6 solo CDs.
Work.
Her CD release with the late master guitarist Joe Beck, entitled Golden Earrings, was included on the Grammy list in the category of Best Jazz Vocal Album.
That's right.
Hello.
Yes, she is legend. It's officially Veganuary, and there is no better way to start off the year than with a visit with the Jazz gal herself. Please welcome to the podcast the Jazzy Vegetarian, Laura Theodore. She's jazzy, she's snazzy, and she's been leading the way with vegan eats to the tune of delicious for years. It's the one and only Jazzy Vegetarian, Laura Theodore. Laura, welcome to Keep on Cooking, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am just so excited to be here and talk about the book and speak with you. I'm such a fan of your show.
Oh, it is mutual. Thank you. I'm such a fan of your show. And I want to get right into our icebreaker question. It's not food related before we dive into food. What is a current hobby you have or one that you wish to start?
Well, what many folks don't know about me is I love to paint. I've been painting since I was a teenager. I actually thought about going into art as a profession, but the jazz tunes and singing and dancing, et cetera, drew me in another direction. But I love painting. I love painting with watercolors. I love painting birds and flowers and the outdoors. And it's something that I've been doing for a very long time. And that's my hobby.
Oh, I love that. It sounds like a very peaceful hobby to have.
It is very, very relaxing. Absolutely.
That's great. Mine is guitar. I've spoken about it on the podcast before, and I've had a guitar for about 10 years, and I have different times in my life where I'm able to devote a little more time to it and pick it up. And I just did over the winter, but I want to make the time for it to become more consistent because I just want to be able to strum a little and sing along. That's all, you know?
Sounds fantastic. I love that.
Well, you've been the host of the Jazzy Vegetarian on PBS for quite some time now. You're also a renowned jazz singer and actress. When did an interest in cooking start for you? And at what point did veganism come into play with it all for you?
Well, thank you. Great question. Interest in cooking came when I was about 3 or 4 years old, when I was standing on a stool in my grandmother's kitchen and she was making her yearly batch of applesauce, which was made with tons and tons of apples from her backyard tree. And she would have me stand on the stool and help stir everything. And I was just fascinated with it. And then move forward, the next time I was really interested in cooking is when I moved out of my house and I realized if I'm going to have good food, I better learn to cook. And my grandmother and my mother started sending me recipes in the mail every week, and I started collecting them. And then when I started becoming interested in being a vegetarian, which was a long time ago, I started making my family recipes vegetarian. And then about 20 years ago, I started making everything vegan. And that's basically how the beginning of the Jazzy Vegetarian was started. And I know a lot of people say, I get it on Facebook all the time, why is it Jazzy Vegetarian? And I know you know this story, but when we were shopping the show many moons ago, it was 18 years ago, we started shopping this show in
Amazing.
2005, right? Is that how many years ago? That's a long
Yeah,
time ago. That's all
that seems to add up, right? Yeah.
yeah. And when we started shopping it, everybody was saying, oh, we can't say the word vegetarian. It's like, oh man, it can't be vegan.
Right.
So we thought, oh, well, that's pretty cool. And of course, back then, people didn't really know what vegan was like they do today. And that's how it ended up being Jazzy Vegetarian. But of course, we are all 100% vegan and have been the entire time.
Right. Oh, wow. I mean, you have seamlessly combined your talents. I mean, really, singing, cooking, and hosting, and the world has been blessed with your show, Jazzy Vegetarian, and several award-winning cookbooks. And we must also mention your solo recordings. You have several, but for those that are listeners on Spotify like myself, I want to mention the albums Golden Earrings and Tonight's the Night. They're fantastic and available for everyone to listen to on Spotify right now. Now, how many seasons? So you say 2005 you're shopping at. How many seasons of the Jazzy Vegetarian are there now?
Well, we're moving into season 11, which we plan on filming in September or October, because I will say it took me 5 years to shop the show, talked with everybody, and we finally got PBS involved in 2010. But we're moving into season 11. We're very excited about it.
Congratulations. I love the persistence of that, and hearing 5 years now that it's had such a long run is very inspiring to hear that you just had this goal, you kept going for it, and we're the luckier for it. Have you released a cookbook? How many cookbooks are there total? Is there one with every season, or how has that worked out for you?
Just about every season. There are 7 cookbooks now, and some seasons we did recipes from the cookbooks from seasons before, and we kind of mixed them up. But there are 7. There's going to be a new one coming out with season 11. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, but it's going to be coming out. And we had one just this past season. It's actually the season that's running now, and it's going to be actually starting on the Create Network in about a month or so.
Great.
4 times a week, and that's season 10. And for season 10, my husband said to me, that original book of yours, it's such a beautiful book. It was so well designed. There's so many fan favorite recipes in that book. Why don't we do a 10th anniversary edition? And that's what we did. And that's the newest cookbook that's out now.
Yes, and we're about to dive into it. The Jazzy Vegetarian Lively Vegan Cuisine that's easy and delicious. Before I touch on that, I am curious. I ask all my authors this. Do you remember a vegan cookbook that you owned of somebody else's, another author, that you cooked from the most, or the first vegan cookbook you ever owned?
Wow. The first vegetarian cookbook I ever owned was, I can't say how many years ago. It was way, way long ago. And it was a little pamphlet that was written by a friend of mine who ran a health food store in Hingham, Massachusetts. And back then, Dustin, health food stores were like barrels of tofu. Tofu was actually in barrels with water, right?
Wow.
And there would be like rice and oats and beans like in glass containers on, shelves. I mean, that's what it was. It was like this wooden barn. Anyway, she wrote this cookbook, and I have made so many vegan recipes. I've, veganized a lot of the recipes in the book. It was like 30-page pamphlet or something, but it's really, really inspired me. And of course, she inspired me to become vegetarian and eventually vegan. But that is the book that really inspired me the most. The second one is Nava Atlas. She's a good friend. I'm big, big fan.
Yes.
And she had sent me one of her books many, many years ago, and I love that. So those are the two books.
That's great. I love that answer. I love hearing that about the health food store. It's why I always ask this question. I get some very interesting answers, and it paints a picture too for people who have been vegan for a long time and where they were sourcing books and all that stuff like that. And Nava Atlas is amazing, everyone. We've got a couple episodes with her on it for Keep on Cooking. So if you want to know more about Nava Atlas, please go back and listen to those. Well, in November 2022, you released the 10th anniversary edition of your book, the Jazzy Vegetarian Cookbook, Lively Vegan Cuisine that's easy and delicious. This is revised and updated for our listeners that have maybe had the original version of the book. What sorts of revisions and updates were made this time around?
Thank you. Well, I did put in a section about cooking oil free because we did
Oh,
use, I mean,
nice.
yeah, a lot of these recipes, of course, were developed 20 years ago. So, I wanted to make sure that people knew how to substitute out the oil in most of the recipes in the book. And so we do have that section. Plus, I updated a lot of the recipes themselves. But what I did is I took out recipes that maybe I wasn't so crazy about. It was my first cookbook, or maybe they weren't all that popular. And we added 25 new recipes that are all featured in season 10. So this cookbook is actually a companion cookbook to season 1 and season 10, incomplete. And so it's completely to both of those seasons, which is a first for our cookbook. And so that was the updating, some great, great new recipes in the book.
I love that, and what a great opportunity to look on sort of just the knowledge you've gotten from your fan base over the years about the book and feedback about the book, and to be able to take another look at it and retool it and then release it again. That's so fun that you're able to do that.
Thank you. Yeah. You know what? It was fun, but man, it's actually harder revising a book
I
than it is
bet.
writing a book from scratch. I will say that. I thought, this is going to be a piece of
Right.
vegan cake, and it was not. But we're very happy with the outcome.
Oh, you should be. It's beautiful. And to celebrate the 10th anniversary edition of Jazzy Vegetarian, we're going to share with the listeners today what have become the 10 most popular recipes from this book over the years. And the first one we're starting off with is the pâtes de crème. Pâtes de crème is a French dessert custard. It's dating back to the 17th century. The name means pot of custard or pot of cream. Why is your pâtes de crème a favorite among your fans?
Well, I think it was really a groundbreaking way, and it still kind of is, of making a vegan pudding. Now, it does have a base of tofu. That's what I used back then and still do often with my puddings. But this was based on my grandmother's recipe that she used to make for me when I was a little girl. And on our birthday, we were allowed to choose the dessert that we wanted to have. And I always chose this dessert. Of course, it was based in cream and
Mm-hmm.
eggs. So when I became vegetarian, Grandma had sent me the recipe. And I thought, man, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to make it vegan? And then I started working on it. And this is really well over 20 years ago, and saying what's going to really hold it together and give it that creamy consistency without using eggs and cream. And of course, back then, and even now, tofu just works
Yeah.
fantastically in this recipe. But the thing about the recipe, it's the way the recipe is constructed. In other words, what happens is when Grandma made the recipe, she would put in the dark chocolate chips, and then she would put in the sugar, and then on top of that, the egg, and then heat up the cream. Pour the cream almost boiling over it, and that's what would melt the chips. So I use that same way of making the pudding nice and creamy. It's so easy. You just put the chips in and put in the sugar. You can actually leave out the sugar if you use 55% cacao,
Mm-hmm.
vegan chocolate chips, obviously. And then I put in the tofu, break it all up, and I heat up vegan milk, plant-based milk, any variety, till it's almost boiling. You pour it over it and it melts the chips. And then you blend it for about a minute. It comes out just perfect. And it is a fan favorite recipe. It has been for 20 years.
Chocolate always does the trick. I love
Yeah, it does. It does.
it. The next one on your list you're sent over, I was so interested to see this on the list. It's the Jazzy Vegetarian Not Liver. What makes this one a popular appetizer from your book?
Well, it's a great one because it's great for the Jewish holidays. And my mother-in-law had sent me her vegetarian version many, many years ago. And I decided to make it vegan. And of course, once again, I did use tofu with this. You could use cashews. Of course, that's also an allergen ingredient. But the tofu does stand in for the egg in this recipe. And then I have the canned peas that stand in for kind of the liver flavor, but it's become a real popular recipe, particularly around the Jewish holidays in both the fall and the spring. And it is absolutely delicious. It's a great dip you can make any time of year. But I can't tell you how many letters, how many posts on Facebook I've had of people saying, oh my God, I really missed chopped liver that my mother used to serve when, I was 10 years old, and this really fills the bill. It tastes just like it. And of course, it's completely vegan.
There you go, serving the people, giving them what they asked for. That's great. We've got festive zucchini lasagna next on the list of popular items here. I love me a lasagna. This festive zucchini lasagna looks perfect. We've got a tofu ricotta in it, a mushroom sauce, and of course some great vegetables in here, some spinach and some zucchini in here as well. You got those mushrooms in the sauce, so we're getting a nice dose of vegetables in here, and then even some vegan ground round in here to really like round things out and make it a satiating, hefty lasagna like everybody wants. And I love to freeze lasagna for leftovers. Does this lasagna freeze well?
Freezes really, really well because that recipe makes a whole bunch of lasagna. And so many people have made it for their family get-togethers, but it freezes absolutely perfectly. And of course, even though it is kind of a heavy lasagna, I do a lot of lighter lasagnas now. But what does lighten it up a little bit is a whole layer of the noodles are, of course, zucchini, and it really is
Perfect.
delicious. Yeah, it's a good one.
I love that. And I love seeing this because I actually made a butternut noodle lasagna a few weeks ago, and I was thinking, I was like, I liked it. It was really great and it was lighter, but I was like, oh, maybe if I like did a variation of noodles plus the butternut, because it was like shaved butternut squash basically to make noodles. I was like,
Mhm.
maybe if I do a variation. So this is inspiring me. I think I'll go that direction next. It sounds good.
Yeah, it is a nice way to lighten it up. And of course, I do lasagnas now. I do it with eggplant noodles. I take the eggplant and I slice it very thin and I pre-roast it for about 15 minutes. It works really, really well. And of course, I've done lasagnas now entirely out of zucchini
Yeah.
lasagna noodles as well. And it also works very, very well. But I always say, if you want to make it taste a little bit more like lasagna, just add a layer of your favorite lasagna noodles. And of course, Dustin, unlike when I put this recipe together about 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, there are now plenty of gluten-free and allergen-friendly lasagna noodles to choose from
Yes.
that taste really good.
Yes, not only that, everybody, there's oven ready noodles to make too, so you can skip the boiling part sometimes. And I have actually found the gluten-free variation that are oven ready and they are vegan. So lots of different options there to streamline your lasagna making if you would like.
Yeah.
Next, you've got the crispy portobello steaks. Tell me about those.
Now, those were actually inspired by my other grandmother who did not like to cook. I had one grandmother, yeah, one grandmother, her last name was Cook, by the way. My mother's mother was
Oh,
named
wow.
Cook, last name Cook. Incredible. My other grandmother did not like to cook, and she would just try to make shortcuts in so many recipes. So she always said to me, just put mayo on everything. She would put mayo on chicken. Just put mayo on everything. It makes it nice and tender. And so when I was putting together this portobello mushroom recipe, I thought, well, cornflakes, of course, classic cornflake breading on a meat or chicken of some sort. And then I use the mayo to kind of adhere those cornflakes to the portobellos, and it's really, really good. And of course, now there are lots of different kinds of mayo, but you can also make a homemade mayo so that you can use whatever, if you want to do it in tofu, you want to do it with cashews, you can do homemade mayo with sunflower seeds, you can do it with walnuts. So it works really well. And that's what that recipe is. But it's a nice, crispy portobello steak with that cornflake coating, baked in the oven, easy to do, little Dijon mustard, of course, and some other flavorings, but it's a really, really good recipe.
Sounds very flavorful. It also sounds quick and easy. And speaking of quick, the next one on the list you sent me is the quick penne with broccoli and sun-dried tomatoes. And I love a quick pasta, and you have the quick penne with broccoli and sun-dried tomatoes. What I also love is how this book is a celebration of Jazzy Vegetarian and all of the beautiful creations you've shared on your television show. The book is peppered with shots from the show and anecdotes about your career in TV and music, and it's such a fun glimpse into the life of Laura Theodore. And this quick penne pasta has a couple of those great action shots from the TV show, showing us just how easy this recipe is. Since it made it on this list, would you say this is the favorite pasta dish in the book for everyone?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been around for a long time. And what it is, of course, it's that great trick of cooking your pasta, and the last 3 minutes you throw in your
Yes.
vegetable. And in this case, it's the broccoli, but you can also do it with green beans, asparagus, pretty much anything. And that's what's great about it. You cook the pasta and the broccoli together, and then it's a nice little sun-dried tomato sauce, which is really adds a nice little jazzy twist, I might say. Very nice, easy recipe, and it's been reviewed many times, and I just love it.
A jazzy twist. I love that. And also, it's that trick of tossing, everyone listening, the trick of tossing the veg just to get some vegetables in your pasta. Even if you're just cooking and you're like, oh gosh, I have that head of broccoli in the fridge. What am I going to do with it? Just chop it up and toss it into your boiling water in the last couple minutes, and it'll round out your pasta and give you something heartier to eat and get your nutrients in too. It's a good way to go. Now, I love a stuffed pepper. Next one is the fancy stuffed peppers with quinoa and black beans. Tell us about those.
Those are great. I was doing a dinner party, and of course, there were going to be no vegans at all. Not
Of
even, I think
course.
there was maybe one or two vegetarians, but no vegans. So I'm like, well, man, how am I going to make something that's really, really hearty? And this was really when quinoa first started to become popular. And it is such a wonderful protein forward recipe. It's very, very healthful, very easy to do. It's cooked quinoa, some black beans, some marinara sauce, some spices, stuffed into peppers and baked in a nice flavorful sauce. And it's so hearty. And I want to say it's meaty without even having any meat analog in it, which is something I love to do. I really like to make meaty recipes as much as I can without using a meat analog. Very, very satisfying. Everybody loved it. So it went into the book.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna have to make these. I really do love stuffed peppers because I always feel like I'm satisfied when I eat it, but I also feel like I'm eating something very healthful, and these seem to fit that bill. So that's great.
Thank you.
The next one we've got is the frozen banana creamy. Now, this seems like a nice cream to me, but it's got a jazzy twist on it. You have a few additions in it that make it pop. Share with our listeners how your frozen banana creamy comes together.
Well, it's of course frozen bananas. That's the start of it. But it is a little something that I came up with when I was doing the show, I think. I wanted to have a dessert, and I had been making this banana kind of ice cream kind of thing, but it's a cross between a smoothie and frozen custard and banana ice cream. And I just take bananas. Instead of having to use vanilla extract, I use a vanilla flavored non dairy milk. I do use a little bit of maple syrup or brown sugar. Of course, you can use date syrup if you want. You can leave the sweetener out. But at the end, I dust it with a little bit of unsweetened cocoa powder. And
Nice.
I just put the first three ingredients in the blender and blend it till it's nice and creamy. You can add a little more milk or use a little less vegan milk if you like, depending on how thick you want it to be. And then just sprinkle it with that cocoa powder. It's very easy and it's delicious.
Oh, that's great. Well, I have a question for you. Do you love French toast?
I do. I do.
I do too, and I've tried to perfect mine for years, and I'm finally getting to a good place with it. After I went vegan, that was one of the hard ones for me, but that means I have to try this cashew French toast. So please share with us why this one has become a reader favorite from the Jazzy Vegetarian.
You do have to try it. I had tried, like you, to make French toast vegan for a whole bunch of times, and it just kept coming out like mushy or weird tasting.
Same for me,
And yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, one morning I woke up and I said, I really, really, really want French toast. And I had some raw cashews. And this is really at the beginning of when people started using cashews, in place of cream or milk, or even, combination almost with egg to make it eggy. I thought, "Oh, yeah, wow, if I put together raw cashews and water, ground cinnamon, the vanilla extract I normally would in French toast, and then I just blend that up into the blender until it's really the consistency of whipped up raw eggs with a little bit of milk in it. And then
Nice.
I soak the bread in it. It comes out just fantastic. It is so good. Really, really delicious. And by the way, if you cannot have, not you, but if someone listening cannot have cashews or nuts, but they can have seeds, you can do this with sunflower seeds. It's not quite as creamy and perfect, but it will work.
Perfect. And we're using for that substitution, I'm guessing we're using raw, unsalted
Yes,
sunflower seeds, just like we would with the raw cashews.
exactly. Same
Yep.
same thing. Just follow the recipe. But it's a great recipe, and I think that's why it's become a fan favorite, because a lot of people want vegan French toast. What happens is there are so many fussy recipes. This is not fussy. It's only a few ingredients, and it really comes out great.
This is great. I can't wait to try it. Well, you have us all covered for all occasions in this book. You even have a special section on planning tempting menus in the front of the book. This will start everyone off right with some guidelines here for any occasion. But you also have us covered with snacks. There are these tamari almonds. This is raw almonds, brown sugar, and tamari comes together with ease. I imagine these are gobbled up in seconds when you put them out at a party, eh?
They are, and if I make them in advance, they're gobbled up by my
Yeah.
husband before the party. So what can I say? Really easy. We used to entertain a lot. I don't so much anymore, like, back when I was in my younger days. But we used to have a lot of folks that came and visited from New York City. They'd come for the weekend, and I was always trying to think of things that they would like. And this really became a go-to, because you just put those raw almonds into the oven and roast them until they're just getting kind of golden, and then just toss it with the brown sugar and the maple syrup. Of course, you could use date syrup as well. And it's really, 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 really good. And then you toss them with the brown sugar or the maple syrup or the
Sure.
date syrup and the tamari. They are tamari almonds, sweet and salty. They are so good.
Oh, they sound delicious. I'm gonna have to make them, but I gotta be careful because I too will gobble them up right away. We have the same. We have a recipe for that we did for Universal Meals of shiitake bacon, and whenever we make it, my husband and I are like, we can't. I mean, it's mushroom, so it's fine, but we just eat it all quickly. We can't keep it around. We always want to have it to put on our salads and stuff, but we end up just snacking on it, and it's gone suddenly.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm not a chilled soup guy, but occasionally I surprise myself. So sell me on this cool cucumber soup. I have cucumbers on hand. Why should I make this soup today?
I have regularly served this soup to non-vegans as a first course in the summer, and it has always, always been a favorite. And it was the same thing, Dustin. I had some cucumbers, I had some soft regular or silken tofu. You can use either one. You can also use cashews if you can have cashews, but you can't have tofu. And a little bit of sweet onion, a little bit of lemon juice, some garlic, a little bit of brown sugar. That just gives it more of a, kind of, I want to say, a commercial taste, but you can leave that out. And then I had some fresh dill. You can also use dried dill. But when you put them all together in the blender and chill them, when it's 90 degrees outside, pour it into a chilled bowl. It is so creamy. Everybody, when they taste it, they say it tastes like there's cream. I can't believe this is vegan, and it's such an easy one. So you'll have to give it a try.
Oh, I love that. I see you sold me actually. I do want to try that. It sounds so easy, but also just when you're talking about the chilled bowl and everything, it sounds so good. So I will have to give it a go. And we've got our final one on the list here, and I love that we're closing things out with a classic, the eggless egg salad. I love that this is a fan favorite from the Jazzy Vegetarian. All too often in the world of processed foods, we're losing the wealth and goodness that comes from a simple block of tofu. Tell us about your eggless egg salad.
This is one that I came up with when we first gave up eggs, and that was a long time ago. And I always loved egg salad, and my husband always loved egg salad. So I had some tofu, and this is before you could find an eggless egg salad recipe in a cookbook, let alone on the internet. There were a few in the cookbooks out there. But I had already come up with the idea that, when you mash up tofu, it's kind of like the white of a hard cooked egg. So it works really, really well. Of course, a lot of people use nutritional yeast in their eggless egg salad. I don't, but you can add it to it. You can also use that black salt that people like to make it taste more like eggs. Since I was never a real big fan of eggs, I don't add it. Those are a couple of things you can add, but it's so easy to do. It's just tofu, vegan mayo, of course, Dijon mustard, carrot, celery, everything my mother used to use in her eggless egg salad. I really make it just exactly the same as she did, but I use the tofu instead. And I do like to add fresh chopped herbs. Some fresh parsley or some fresh basil or a combination is really, really good. And then, of course, the trick is to add a little bit of ground turmeric to any kind of eggless egg vegan recipe that you're making, because it gives it that eggy kind of color. And of course, it adds nutrition as well. Now, all that being said, this recipe also works really well with chickpeas. I have made
Nice.
it with chickpeas. You can find the recipe on the internet. You can buy the book, whatever you like, but you'll find this on the internet as well. And on the Jazzy Vegetarian website under season 10 recipes, actually. But it was also in season 1. And you just follow the recipe exactly, but you just use a 15-ounce can of cooked chickpeas, obviously drained and rinsed, and make the recipe, and it comes out fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I love variations for our listeners too. So everybody, don't forget if you want it and you're like, oh wait, I don't have any tofu, but you got that can of chickpeas, you're gonna be all set. And that is Jazzy Vegetarian Lively Vegan Cuisine. That's easy and delicious, the 10th anniversary edition. Now, Laura, I always ask everyone for a book brag, and what that means is what's something you're most proud of when it comes to this new revised and updated version of this book?
Thank you for asking that. I am proud of the way that I was able to update some of the older recipes, make them a little bit more modern, and that I've really got some of my best new recipes in the book. My meatless meatloaf muffins are fantastic. I've got some fantastic gluten-free cakes that are all based in oat flour. I've got a wonderful summer peach tart
Ooh,
with
delicious.
a vegan cream underneath it. It's absolutely amazing. So there's some great, amazing, new, kind of groundbreaking recipes in it, as well as all the fan favorites. And I'm very proud that I was able to kind of put that all together and make it make sense in a book.
Yes, absolutely. And that is definitely something to be proud of. You should see me like feverishly flipping through this book now. I'm like, oh, there it is. Summer peaches and lemon cream tart. And it looks gorgeous, everybody. Oh, I love that. Well, I'm so glad you were able to make those additions to this book. And we're going to move into your rapid fire round of questions. Are you ready for this?
Ready?
Here we go. Favorite pasta shape?
Penne,
Cupcake or donut?
cupcake.
Favorite way to prepare tofu?
In the eggless egg salad,
Yes. Pancakes or waffles?
pancakes.
And now a non-food related one. Do you have a favorite board game?
Huh. Scrabble, definitely.
Nice. And would you ever appear on a reality show?
No.
I love the lower register your voice takes in some of these answers. No. Oh, hot sauce or barbecue sauce?
Barbecue sauce.
And favorite seasoning to cook with?
Italian seasoning blend.
Do you think that's one of my favorites too? Do you think you would make a good detective?
Absolutely not.
And your last one, what is your must-have tool in the kitchen?
I would say it is a colander, believe it or not.
Hey, that makes
Because,
sense.
yeah, it's so handy. It would be a colander. Use it for
It
so
is
many
handy.
things.
So many different things. Well, Laura, you did it. And thank you so much for playing along. Everyone, Laura's podcast, the Laura Theodore podcast, is a must. Her podcast covers tips for eating well, feeling good, and living a mindful life. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. She's got lots of great special guests featuring upbeat, informative, and engaging conversations. Where can people find the podcast, Laura?
Well, you can go to jazzyvegetarian.com, click on podcast, and there you'll get a link to listen to it on our host network, which is Mind, Body, Spirit FM.fm, that is. But you can also, it'll give you links to listen to it on Apple and all the different places that you can listen to podcasts. You can really listen to it anywhere, but go to jazzyvegetarian.com and click on podcast, and you can get all the information there. And of course, you're going to be on the show.
Yes, yes, so excited. And I feel like my next question, because I'm going to ask you, where can listeners find episodes of your very popular PBS show, The Jazzy Vegetarian? Where can they find episodes of that? Can they find it all on the website as well?
There are some on the website. Each season has its own episode. So you can watch one episode from each season. That's 10 episodes we have on the website now. And you just click on television and it'll take you to the different seasons. You can watch a full episode from that season. We do have some on YouTube as well, and we also do have a streaming television channel, Jazzy Vegetarian TV. That's jazzyvegetariantv.com. It's a subscription-based channel. It's very inexpensive. I think it's $3.99 or something like that.
Oh,
and
great.
we've got 52 full episodes, jazzyvegetariantv.com, that you can stream. You can also get 2 seasons on Amazon Prime, season 4 and season 5, Amazon Prime. And of course, watch it every week on the Create Network.
That's fantastic. And everyone, you can find Laura on Instagram at the Jazzy Vegetarian and get all of the info on her podcast, music, books, TV show, and more at jazzyvegetarian.com. And of course, you want to get Laura's 10th anniversary edition of the Jazzy Vegetarian everywhere books are sold. Laura, I bow down to you. You are a tremendous talent, and we are so lucky to have you leading the way and entertaining the world, changing it one bite at a time the way you have. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for being here today. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you so much. And I just think you are an amazing force, and the amazing work that you are doing now with PCRM and your books and your travel series and your fantastic podcast. You are also a pioneer, and I look up to you in so many ways. It's been a great honor to be with you here today.
This has been a Muzzy Cat production.